The Seeds of Cauldron by Tecpa R.A. Chapter 1. Elise. Silvaria, month 94, year 226. It was night and day, winter and summer, all at the same time. If a human had been born on Earth, it would seem illogical. But to the humans born on Cauldron, it was just another first day of the month. But it wasn't just another first day of the month for her. The chill bit the young woman's cheek as she reluctantly crawled out from beneath the thick layered covers of her bed. Wrapped in the warmth of several blankets and furs, she had clung to the very last moment of comfort. The bite of the frigid air making even the smallest movements feel like a shock. Her breath hung visibly in the dim room as she shivered, slipping her legs out of bed and with a wince. Each step of her almost bare feet across the cold stone floor was physically painful. With an urgency driven by the cold, she dressed quickly, layering thick, carefully folded garments as an armor against the fierce winter outside her chamber. First came the fine silk undershirt, then a heavy woolen dress, and finally her tailored cloak with a fur-trimmed hood fastened tightly around her shoulders. Her long blonde hair, cascading to the middle of her back, was quickly braided to keep it out of the way, and she brushed a few stray strands from her face. Her noble birth afforded her luxuries, like a fine clothes she was wearing, and the pure gold charm that hung from her neck, bearing the symbol of Goddess Selena. Yet it all seemed fragile against the endless cold the world felt. She paused at her desk and took a small, neatly folded note and stared at it briefly, as if in silent farewell before tucking it into the pages of a heavy-looking book signed and autographed by Cauldron. She slipped a handful of gold and silver coins into a pouch that she put in the pocket of her dress. With her belongings carefully stowed, she cast a final glance at the room, letting the familiarity of it sink in. She paused at the corridor's window, staring out in the darkness where the ringed planet, Oron, loomed overhead. For days, its immense shadow had eclipsed the sun, forcing them into the longest, darkest, and coldest night of the month. They call it the Long Night, yet the phrase felt inadequate to describe how low the temperature would drop, or how dangerous it would be to be caught unprepared. Even here in the capital of Silvaria, otherwise known for its pleasant weather, the familiar cold seeped into her bones, reminding her just how cruel the long night is, even in the warmest regions of the Empire. In the quiet, she slipped out of the castle, navigating the narrow passageways. The stone was cool beneath her gloves as she hurried down the stairwell, her heart beating faster with each step. The corridors were completely empty, as even the most diligent members of the staff would leave their guarding duties aside, looking for warmth. The only resistance she found on her way out of the castle was the sting of frozen air burning her nostrils, and the treacherous slick of ice beneath her boots slowing her pace. One step at a time, her destination was clear. Beyond the castle grounds, past the village, and into the waiting countryside. Outside, the sky was still dark, but high above, Oron was beginning to drift out of alignment with the sun. Most of the traveling giant remained cloaked in shadow, its vast body a silhouette against the stars, but the edges of its golden rings had begun to shimmer intensely, catching the first rays of Selena from behind Oren's silhouette. The sight was familiar yet beautiful. She knew dawn was approaching, yet she lingered for one last glimpse at the castle's silhouette against the night, standing proudly on its hilltop. The place she had once called home felt distant, its halls filled with echoes of memories she'd rather leave behind. She had long dreamed of leaving the castle, not only to leave her past behind, not only seeking adventure, not only to escape the future her grandfather had decided for her, but also because of the stories that were described to her as a child. Her father, once a proud Southerner before marrying and moving to the capital, had spoken to her with his hands. Of the land he once called home, of snow-laced mountains and rivers that shimmered like jewels, of countless ice-filled waterfalls and steaming hot springs that filled the mountains and valleys. He told her the tales of gods like Ultikan, who offered blessings, not through birthright, but through merit, bestowing his favor on those who labored with devotion and strength, instead of those who happened to be offspring of an important someone. As a child, she had paid close attention to, wide-eyed, enraptured by the wonder of a world so different from the one she had grown up in. And though over 100 months had come and gone, her father was no longer around, and she had grown out of childhood. These stories had never left her mind. As she walked in hurried pace through the city, she remembered with a special fondness the excitement and longing in her father's face as he described how the dark sky would glow in shifting colors each month, just before and right after the long night. A sight he considered far more wondrous than any statue or monument built by human hands here in the capital. It was something he had always longed to witness for herself. As she reached Daenerys' family's cottage, at the edge of town, the door opened before she could knock. Daenerys, her face lit with excitement and flushed from the cold, greeted her with a silent, wordless embrace that seemed to warm the very air between them. "Elise," Daenerys whispered, her lips moving slowly as she spoke the one word, while she studied her friend's face. Daenerys' green eyes were full of joy, her long hair red, still tangled across her face. Elise responded with a slight smile, tightening her scarf and moving the rebel red strands of hair away from Daenerys' nose. She and Daenerys had grown up together, communicating in gestures, expressions, and hands. As Daenerys pulled away from Elise, her father, Piero, smiled and signed, with a gentle, proud look in his eyes. "Happy birthday, Elise. You're officially an adult now." His gaze shifted to Daenerys, who had celebrated her own second birthday just 4 months ago. He hugged them both. "You both are," he added, his voice carrying both pride and bitter-sweet acceptance. Elise returned his smile, her eyes glistening, and nodded in thanks. Daenerys' mother, Selene, moved to light a few oil lamps around the table, just as she had done on Daenerys' birthday. The warm glow softened the room, casting gold light over each face. Selene raised her hands, signing slowly to Elise, to catch every word. "You're a woman now, a grown woman with a purpose, and no one is prouder than us." Her face softened further with a tender grin. "Though, I still wish you were both staying here, safe with us." Daenerys rolled her eyes, laughing. "Mother, we've been through this. We've made up our minds." They settled around the modest table, and Elise took in the care and effort Daenerys' family had poured into the meal. Despite their limited means, Selene and Piero had prepared a small but thoughtful spread. Freshly baked bread, steaming stew fragrant with herbs, and in the center of the table, a delicately decorated dessert, a tradition for birthday celebrations. It's wonderful, Elise sighed, gratefully, savoring the warm, spicy aroma. Though it was simpler than the luxuries her noble birth would have offered, it felt richer, a meal that only a family's shared excitement could create. As they ate, Danira's younger brother, Miro, signed eagerly, his hands flying with excitement. My friend Sam told me you can touch the rings of Oron from the south, and that there are monsters in the sea that are bigger than the castle. Promise you'll write back and tell me about everything you find? His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Promise. Danira laughed, ruffling his hair. I'll write if I find any sea monsters, or get close enough to touch Orin's rings. The child's eyes glowed with anticipation to read what Danira and Elise would find on their journey. After their meal, Elise and Danira's family walked towards the shrine they had at their home. It was a shrine to goddess Selena. It was humble as by any standards, but especially compared to the large and luxurious shrine Elise's family used for prayer at the castle. However, in Danira's home, the family took pride that they had managed to keep the fire burning here for generations. Celine took ashes from the bonfire, still warm. She used them to make a symbol in Elisa and Danira's forehead, while saying, Don't forget to say your prayers. I packed Holly's candles and Solhara herbs for you. This was followed by a long list of other reminders that both of them had been told 1,000 times. Finally, the family knelt in reverence, their eyes gently closed as they whispered a heartfelt prayer, the soft flicker of the shrine's flames casting warm shadows around them. Elise carefully folded a small piece of paper containing her wish and placed it inside the jar. With a delicate motion, she sealed it and then set the jar down reverently near the glowing flames of the shrine, where it would be embraced by the warmth of Seliena's blessings. Danira's family gathered around her, each embrace lingering, their warmth wrapping around Elise as well. The weight of each farewell settled on her, comforting yet bittersweet, knowing that they all understood she and Danira were bound for a long, uncertain journey. Celine lifted her hands, signing with slow, deliberate care so Elise and Danira could catch every motion, take care of each other. Elise met her gaze, nodding with a renewed resolve. Piero leaned closer, making sure his lips were clear and easy to read. His palm came to rest softly on Elise's head. You are our child too, Elise, no matter your last name. When you return, this will always be your home. Elise swallowed hard, blinking quickly as she held back her emotions in her throat. At last, and before his dad could say more, Miro was making his way back from the top of a stool, holding a pouch. He took from a shelf. He signed in amusement, dried apples. Don't let Danny hog them all. No apples for me? Danny protested with her hands, in a mixture of pouting and teasing. Elise's shoulders shook with an unrestrained laugh as she tucked in the pouch into her cloak. Finally, with their tightly packed belongings in hand, Danira and Elise stepped out into the dim, cold morning, leaving the house through its only door. Behind them, the light from the oil lamps flickered softly, as the family had grown to consider her own, and waved goodbye, both growing increasingly distant with every step. Elise and Danira turned in the other direction. Together they would face whatever awaited them in their quest. The two moved swiftly through the village, their footsteps vibrating from the worn cobblestones as they made their way toward the waiting caravan. The streets narrowed as they entered the heart of the old center, familiar, yet distant under the morning light. For Elise, every step stirred something buried. She remembered these alleys as playgrounds, places where she, Daenerys, and other children had once run, laughing, weaving between stalls and people. She recalled her father, tall and strong, carrying her on his shoulders, while he hunted for southern food ingredients that reminded him of home. She remembered the stray, black-eared cat, how it used to follow her for scraps, rubbing against her legs whenever she passed. The memories came freely now, some warm, others heavy with time, moments of joy and moments of regret. At the end of the street, just beyond the last row of shuttered windows, the caravan stood waiting. The caravan leader, a tall, broad man with a thick, graying beard, met them near the lead wagon. His clothes were plain and warm. His sharp eyes softened as he noticed Elise. Sig, the leader of the group, had met them once before and already knew of their plans. "What brings two young women like yourselves to a caravan headed for the coast?" he asked with a slight smile, already knowing their answer. Elise's lips quirked into a small smile as Daenerys spoke confidently beside her. "We're going to Oltikia to learn magic," Daenerys declared, her voice filled with pride as she revealed their goal. At this, Sig's face softened. Nodding in understanding, he turned to Elise. My niece is deaf too. Sharp as a needle, that girl." Elise could see the warmth in his gaze, even as his hands fumbled through signs. Sig's body moved as if shouting, "Jared, come over." A slight younger man approached, yet old enough to be the young woman's parents. He looked lean and scruffy with dark hair and sleepy expression. "Sig, what's this? You found travelers headed to the port?" he asked with a yawn, his gaze shifting to Elise and Daenerys. "Jared, this is Elise and Daenerys," Sig said. "They're bound for the southern lands, hoping to learn magic." He glanced knowingly at Jared. "Figured you'd want to weigh in, given that you've been to the pass." "What is it like?" Daenerys asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Cold," he said with a hollow laugh, "and merciless." His voice held a note of respect that surprised Daenerys. Elise looked at him as she expected him to continue speaking. "I was stationed down south at the pass during the Unification War," he said, studying the two women thoughtfully. "If you think the long nights are harsh here, wait till you experience them down there. We lost more soldiers to frostbite than we did to blades." He stays silent for a moment. "We might have had the larger army and the superior firepower, but in the end it was Emperor Alderic who had to make the most of the compromises to end the conflict." Daenerys listened as Elise tried to follow the movement of his lips, the weight of his words sinking in. Though it had all passed before either of them were born, they knew the history well enough. The pass, the narrow strip of land connecting the distant southernlands to the rest of the empire, was where Altair's forces had met fierce resistance. Despite almost 2 years of struggle, Emperor Alderic had been forced to negotiate a reluctant peace, leaving the southernlands independent in all but name. Jared looked straight into Elise's silver eyes. "You have the eyes of a southern girl. I remember them well." She remained silent, unsure of how to respond. Sig's laughter broke through the silence. "Think you two are ready for that kind of challenge?" he teased, though his voice was laced with admiration. Elise met his gaze firmly. Her eyes alone spoke of her resolve. "Yes, we're ready." The caravan set off, their steps crunching over the frozen ground. As they moved through the village, Elise cast one last look at the sky, where Orin's shadow was finally lifting. The sunlight was beginning to creep across the land, and with each passing moment, it seemed as though the world itself was waking up. Around them, frost sparkled, and the first hints of green began to emerge from the frozen soil. As they passed into the countryside, the sun rose higher, casting warm golden light over the frostbitten fields. The frost-covered branches of the twisted trees shivered and slowly began to unfurl their thick, silver-green leaves, which had curled tightly inward against the cold. In the fields, odd, low-growing plants extended their thorny tendrils that stretched out like fingers, seemingly testing the air before fully opening. Even the air felt different, no longer biting and still, but alive with the faintest hum. A sign of the ground-dwelling insects emerging from their burrows, warmed by the sun's return. For beneath the thawing soil, vibrations could be felt, increasingly active. Creatures that hide underneath for warmth. Here and there, clusters of small, cocooned creatures were breaking open to reveal their wings that shook off thin layers of ice, their bodies releasing small plumes of steam as they took to the sky. Sig glanced back, grinning as he motioned to the unfolding scene. "See that? We merchants are early folks," he said as he turned his face to Elise. His face was filled with amusement. "Those who are still lying in bed don't know what they're missing. After a long night, the sky turns blue, the air warm, and the whole world comes back to life." Elise found herself quietly agreeing as she took in the soft hues of dawn painting the landscape. Steeply contrasting cold and lifeless, the land became during the long nights. The caravan moved steadily forward, its rhythm dictated by necessity, not haste. She and Danira took turns riding a woolly donkey, the small luxury a rare boon on their journey. Danira's father had managed to rent one for them, just one, as even that strained a commoner's purse. Fortunately, they were light enough for the sturdy animal to bear, though Sig, with his broad frame and easy laughter, would have been an impossible burden. Elise knew they would need to earn some money for any unexpected turns their trip might take. Despite coming from a wealthy noble family, she didn't have lots of money herself. With determination, Elise convinced Anira to accompany her, to help her to translate with her intentions to Sig and other merchants. They approached Sig. "Is there anything we can do to earn some cash along the way?" Sig looked thoughtful for a moment. "Not right now, but once we reach Solmaris, you can help us sell our merchandise. I'll pay you commission for everything you sell." Elise's heart raced at the thoughtful opportunity. She could already envision the bustling marketplace, the colorful stalls, and the chance to prove herself. She spoke no words, nor with her voice or with her hands, but her body language was clear. "Thank you, Sig. That sounds amazing." Elise and Danira both dashed toward the donkey, laughing as they bickered over whose turn it truly was. Elise insisted hers had just begun. Danira argued hers wasn't finished. In the end, Elise won the seat, settling atop the woolly creature with a triumphant grin. But as the laughter faded, she turned her gaze southward, her smile softening. Beyond the frostbitten fields and waking forest lay the mysterious land her father once called home, a place she hoped she could soon see in person. As the caravan creaked into motion, Elise watched the horizon with quiet resolve, feeling the pull of a legacy she had only ever known through stories. End of chapter.